we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, July 11th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I hope you guys enjoyed my, if you saw my cold open, which was I accidentally hit, the one-person graphic. So you saw me before I played the intro that I usually play before I start. So that was my first official cold open. It was like a 2-second snap of me, and then I clicked on the intro. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. So let's get into the rundown for the show today. So I did watch episode 2. Now I did watch it 2 days ago, but it was late. I was coming home from work, so I didn't want to put it in the show yesterday. So we're going to talk about episode 2 of Hard Knocks with the Giants. I'll give you my overall thoughts on the episode. I did also watch the first episode of Receiver. Now, they released all 8 episodes, so I'll have to watch all of them at some point. But I did sit down and watch the first one last night, so maybe I'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of this segment here. But yeah, so we'll get into the Hard Knocks episode. I'll recap it, give you my thoughts. Then we have reached our final schedule breakdown. Today it'll be the Denver Broncos schedule, so I'll get into that. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about Patrick Mahomes winning the ESPY for the best NFL player, so I'll give you my thoughts on that. In the fourth part of the show, I'll talk about what an NFL scout had to say about Deshaun Watson and his upcoming 2024 campaign. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some comments made by Davante Adams about Antonio Pierce. And also, I kind of wanted to touch upon something else regarding Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. So that's the rundown for the show today. Hope everybody's doing well. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about episode 2 of the Giants Hard Knocks. So, interesting episode, and I think a lot of people are really excited for the next one, and I'll get into that because it's involves Saquon Barkley. But yeah, it was an interesting episode. You kind of saw the Giants were at the combine, so we saw all that. We also saw, before we get into the combine stuff, one of the interesting things was how these guys in the front office handle the media. And you kind of get to see a behind the scenes when it comes to that, because Joe Schoen kind of got the rundown of what questions he would be asked before he took the podium. And, he talked about what he would say. And, the questions had to do with Saquon Barkley, of course, because that really has been the main topic, before he signed with the Eagles, of course. That was something that, was talked about a lot, is what are the Giants going to do with Saquon Barkley? And I thought that was interesting, because then it just kind of makes you wonder, a lot of the lines that, some of these guys say are rehearsed, and it was funny because he said something about, but he wasn't going to say it. It was about how, they offered Saquon a ton of money, but he didn't take it. He said that before he took the podium, but he's like, yeah, I'm not going to say that. So that was kind of funny. But Yeah, so they went to the combine. You kind of saw them, watching, these guys run the 40-yard dash. I think I touched upon, them watching the Xavier Worthy 40-yard dash, and Joe Schoen was like, he's got to run it again to try to break the record, and he did. He broke John Ross's record. He got a 4.21 on the 40-yard dash. And I did, because I did touch upon it, because they said, all right, well, he's going to be taken at the end of the first round, and sure enough, he got taken by the Kansas City Chiefs. And they made that trade with the Buffalo Bills to get Xavier Worthy. And also, they met with a lot of the quarterbacks as well. They met, with the top quarterbacks. They met with Caleb Williams. They met with Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May. They met with all those guys. And I'll be honest, like when Brian Dable's like talking to them about, certain plays and things like that, I kind of got lost. But and you also saw them interview Malik Neighbors as well. And, Dable asked some questions about, how do you handle losing, things like that. And the other thing, too, is Joe Schoen, spoke with the Patriots while they were at the Combine. Because the Patriots, there was that speculation that they possibly were going to, or not possibly, but there were speculation that maybe, they'd be taking offers and possibly trade out of the number 3 pick. And Joe Schoen's like, keep me in the back of your mind because, the Giants were interested in maybe trading up and trying to take, one of the top quarterbacks. But we all know that ended up not happening. And the Giants are going to be rolling out Daniel Jones. But they did also bring up, they need a backup plan for Daniel Jones. There was a little snippet of that in there where Joe Schoen was like, we need a backup quarterback, whether it's a young guy or we got to, go out and trade for somebody, sign someone, whatever the case may be. And we now know that eventually became Drew Lock. So that's their backup plan. Now, if the Giants were able to trade up, they probably would have taken a quarterback, but they ended up staying at 6. They took Malik Neighbors, and, we know the rest of the story there. But then towards the end of the episode, you had Joe Schoen talking to Saquon Barkley's agent and Saquon himself. Now, when Joe Schoen talked to Saquon, Saquon just did not seem interested in talking to Joe Schoen. And Joe Schoen basically told him, we're not going to franchise tag you. Go test the market. See what kind of offer you get, and then come back to us, and we'll see if we match that. Now, we know that Saquon came out and said the Giants never offered him anything. So we're going to find out in next week's episode, how everything kind of unfolded. And I'm interested to see, how that is, But, again, I'm not a Giant fan that's, upset with Saquon taking more money to go elsewhere. If the Giants did offer him a contract, I mean, they offered him one, last year, and he didn't take it. So it is what it is. And like they were talking about in episode 1, the Giants have a lot of holes. On the offensive line, there's holes on defense. They got to get more pass catchers. I think when you look at the needs for the Giants, running back is not a top priority. And, they went out and they got Devin Singletary, and I think he's a nice player. He's not Saquon Barkley, but the Giants have other needs. The offensive line, pass catchers. It's just and quarterback. But they're gonna have to roll out Daniel Jones at least for 2023 or 2024. So I'm okay with them letting Saquon walk, but they wanted Saquon to come back. It's just they wanted him to come back at their price. And that ended up not happening. But we're going to find out exactly how all that unfolded. But yeah, when Joe Schoen was talking to Saquon, he just did not seem interested in wanting to talk with him. It seemed like he had no interest. So, but we'll find out in next week's episode, how that all unfolded. I'm looking forward to that. It's been good so far. We'll find out, how the Brian Burns trade kind of went down. Because actually, that was the other thing, too, with the salary cap. going up. Joe Schoen was very excited about that because, that gave the Giants more flexibility. And that I guess that was part of the reason why, they went out and they signed and they traded for Brian Burns and then signed him to a big contract. So, that was another thing that was I think that was at the very beginning of the episode. So, but yeah, that's really my overall thoughts on it. Again, the Saquon stuff is like the juiciest part of these episodes because you want to see, how everything kind of unfolded behind the scenes. But again, I'm fine with Saquon leaving. I mean, going to the Eagles, yeah. I mean, there's a part of me where it stings, but they're a better team. They're more equipped for making a deep playoff run, getting to a Super Bowl, and even winning a Super Bowl. The Giants aren't that team right now. Listen, Saquon staying would have been great, and he was probably the best offensive player. Well, no, not probably. He was the best offensive player. But, he's getting older, has dealt with injuries over the course of his career. And like I've been saying, the Giants had other needs that they needed to address. And overpaying for a running back that's, getting closer to 30, getting past his prime year soon, yeah, I think that was the right move. I think that was the right choice. Now, if you want to go back to when they had to decide between paying Daniel Jones and paying Saquon Barkley, maybe you pay Saquon Barkley and you let Daniel Jones walk. I don't know. But listen, all of this, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, these were guys drafted by Dave Gettleman. Joe Schoen and Brian Dable inherited this stuff, these players. So, it's not entirely on them. So, when they let Saquon Barkley walk, well, they didn't draft Saquon Barkley. I don't know. So, we'll find out what happens in episode 3, how things unfold. I guess we'll see. I think we're going to see the Brian Burns trade because we're getting up to free agency. So, we'll see how it all goes. But let me know what you guys think about the episode. What were your overall thoughts on it? They release every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So, yeah, we're on episode 2 now. But then you got on Netflix. So those episodes are on, the Hard Knocks episodes are on Max. The Receiver episodes, they're on Netflix. And Netflix, they just released all of them at the same time. And I only watched episode 1 last night. Got to see George Kittle's 30th birthday. He scored 3 touchdowns on his birthday. So that was funny. Because his wife hung, she threw a surprise party for him after the game against the Cowboys. And she hung, all of his shoes, on the ceiling. So, so that was funny. Episode 2 is going to be more focused on Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams because they focused on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Debo, and George Kittle. And then you got Devontae and Justin Jefferson. I guess they'll focus more on them in episode 2. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about a lot of NFL content coming out. So I'm going to continue to watch the Receiver stuff on Netflix and maybe do some topics on that. So so we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will break down the Denver Broncos schedule for 2024. I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Broncos' 2024 schedule. This is the final schedule breakdown that I will be doing, and it went really fast, but here we are. We're going to have to figure out something else to do. So the Broncos last year, it was an up and down season for them. They looked like they were going to finish with one of the worst records in football, but they ended up finishing 8-9. Then it looked like at one point they were going to make the playoffs, maybe sneak in as a wild card team, but that ended up not happening. Russell Wilson is now no longer there. He is now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is going to be the starting quarterback for them, at least for the beginning part, or the beginning of the season. So it's you got a quarterback room of when it comes to the Broncos, you got Jared Stidham, Bo Nix, who they drafted, and Zach Wilson. Oh, and congratulations to Zach Wilson on getting engaged. That happened while I believe I was away. When I was away. So this is the Broncos schedule. So it's kind of funny. So you got week 1, you got two teams that the teams that Russell Wilson previously played for going at it in week 1. Now, this is in Seattle, just like when Russell Wilson made his first Denver Broncos start in Seattle on that Monday night that the Broncos lost. And that was those were the early signs of that was not a good game. But yeah, so they'll be going at it, and then in week 2 the Broncos face off against Russell Wilson at home. So that should be an interesting game. So I don't know, just looking at this schedule, I just don't think the Broncos are going to be very good. First of all, I don't even know who's going to be starting. Is it going to be Jared Stidham? Is it going to be Bo Nix? I don't think it's going to be Zach Wilson. I'd be surprised if it was Zach Wilson. Maybe they'll have him start against the Jets in week 4 against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, but I don't see that happening. I think it's either going to be Stidham or it's going to be Bo Nix. That's my guess, but who knows. So in Seattle, now, there's no more Pete Carroll. It's Mike McDonald. But I don't know. I still think the Seahawks being at home, I think they should win this game. So I'm going to give Denver a loss. Against Pittsburgh, I mean, I could see them upsetting the Steelers. But I don't know. I'd probably lean towards the Steelers and take them. But, the Broncos being at home and, Russell Wilson, I don't know how he's going to play. I mean, I think he's going to be all right for the Steelers, but I could see the Steelers losing this game. But I'm going to still pick them. So the Broncos start off 0-2. I think they could beat the Bucs in Tampa, but again, probably lean towards taking the Bucs. The Jets, I see that being a win for the Jets. Against the Raiders, the Raiders won the season swept the season series last year. So I'd probably take the Raiders here. The Chargers, probably take the Chargers. I really, to be honest, I really just don't see a lot of wins for Denver here. Against the Saints, I mean, Sean Payton's return, I mean, could they win that game? Maybe. But I'd probably lean towards the Saints. I think week 8, that you got to pencil that in as maybe a win against the Panthers. Then you got the Ravens and the Chiefs, both road games back to back. I think those are both losses. The Falcons at home, I think that's a loss. Yeah, I just don't. I really don't see a lot of wins here. The Raiders in Vegas. I see that as a loss. The Browns, I think that might be a loss. Although they did beat the Browns in Denver last year, but no Deshaun Watson. So could they win that game? Sure. The Colts, Peyton Manning's former team's going at it. I don't know. I really don't see a lot of wins. I see maybe like 2 or 3 wins. The Colts, I think, could be a loss. The Chargers, I mean, maybe you split with the Chargers. The Bengals in Cincy, I think that's a loss. Maybe the Chiefs rest their starters and they can get a win there, because by then the Chiefs might have like home field advantage wrapped up if they got the 1 seed or whatever, the division wrapped up. So yeah, I don't see a lot of wins for the Broncos. I see maybe, I mean, the Panthers, that game, I could definitely see them winning that, but it's just it's tough because I really don't know what to expect. They traded Jerry Jeudy. You still got Cortland Sutton, but it's just I don't really know what to expect. I mean, when you got Jarrett Stidham starting at quarterback, or you have Bo Nix, I just don't really think there's a lot around them on offense that they're gonna be. I mean, if the defense is good, that could keep them in games, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of. I'm not very high on the Broncos. I don't think a lot of people are high on the Broncos. I mean, but yeah, I just don't really see a lot of wins here. The Panthers is like the one game where I could definitely see them, winning. But I don't think they're gonna win one game. I think they're definitely gonna win more than one game. I could be wrong. They could go winless. But maybe they split with the Raiders. Like I said, if the Chiefs rest their starters, maybe they could get a win there. I'm gonna say like they get 3 wins somehow. I'm gonna say 3 or 4 wins. I don't see a lot of wins on this schedule. I really don't. But like I said yesterday, injuries can happen, and a team they could be facing, maybe could be battered by injuries, and they could take advantage of that. But yeah, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 wins. I really don't see a lot of wins on this schedule here. But I could be wrong. But I just think giving them 1 win, I don't see that. I think they're gonna find a way. Now I don't know where it's gonna come from. Like I said, maybe they upset Russell Wilson. They could split against their divisional opponents. I mean, I think they could beat the Saints. I mean, Sean Payton's return to New Orleans, maybe he gets a win there. Maybe they upset Tampa. But, against the Ravens, the Chiefs earlier in the season, and, the Bengals week 17, there's not a lot of wins in that on this schedule here. But who knows? They could prove me wrong. But that is their schedule. So yeah, I'm gonna say like 3 or 4 wins. I really don't. I don't see a lot of wins on this schedule. But we'll see how they approach this season. When it comes to the quarterback position, does Bo Nix end up starting right away? Do we see Jarrett Stidham? Do we maybe even see Zach Wilson? I said I don't think we'll see. Zach Wilson is not going to be the starter. But, who knows? But that is the final schedule breakdown. So we got through all of them, and it went very fast. And now we got to figure out, something else because we changed the format. And it used to be 4 segments we would do, and now we do 5. But since we started doing that, that's why I started doing the schedule breakdowns, because it gave me something to at least, cover in that 5th segment. But we've gone through every single team now. So, but we're 3 weeks away, right? 3 weeks away from the Hall of Fame game. So, before we know it, we're going to have some stuff to talk about. So, but yeah, the schedule breakdowns have concluded. And yeah, I mean, we'll see, if I'm right, how accurate I am. Maybe the Broncos go on and they win 10 games and they, shock the world to make the playoffs. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think when you got Jared Stidham at quarterback and, Bo Nix wasn't, he wasn't one of the, he was one of the top quarterbacks, but he was like, the fourth or fifth guy, he's more, I think, of a project as opposed to, the top guys like Caleb Williams and, Jaden Daniels, those guys. But, we'll see. I think he's probably going to, sit for a little bit. Drake May looks like he's going to sit for a little bit. You definitely know Michael Penix is going to sit. J.J. McCarthy. It seems like it really is only going to be Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels that are going to start week 1. But I could be wrong. Because I think on the Rich Eisen show they did, they were like over under 2.5 rookie quarterbacks starting in week 1, and I think Rich Eisen took the over. I think it's gonna be those two guys that I just said. It's just gonna be Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Broncos. How do you see them doing in 2024? I think they're going to finish in last place. I'm confident in that. But, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give them 1 win. I think they can get at least 3, maybe 4 wins. But we'll see. And it's, the Broncos, how far they've fallen since the Peyton Manning years. They just can't get it right at quarterback. They can't get it right at head coach. You were hoping with Sean Payton that he was going to turn things around. And, again, last year was kind of like a roller coaster season for them, the Broncos. And it looked like, hey, maybe this team could sneak into the playoffs. But that just ended up not happening. And Russell Wilson ended up getting benched. And Jared Stidham started the final couple games. And it's funny because I've said this before. The previous season with Josh McDaniels, they benched Derek Carr. And Jared Stidham started the last few games in 2022. And then he started the last few games in 2023 when Sean Payton benched Russell Wilson. So, yeah, they still got Jared Stidham. I think he's probably going to start week 1, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But actually, before we go to break, I almost forgot to do this. Before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we get back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Patrick Mahomes winning the ESPY for Best NFL Player. So I'll give you my thoughts on that and whether or not he deserved it or not. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about now Patrick Mahomes winning the ESPY for Best NFL Player. So the ESPYs actually are tonight. I believe they're at, I think what are they at? 9 p.m., I think, and it's hosted by I think Serena Williams is hosting it. But Patrick Mahomes got the award for best NFL player. So yeah, it's tonight, I think 9 p.m. And it'll be on ABC. So I'll try to tape it. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes won best NFL player. Also, Shohei Ohtani won best MLB player. But we'll see what happens next year. I think the season Aaron Judge is having, might have something to say about that. But anyways, that's baseball. Let's get back to football. But anyways, so Patrick Mahomes, he did not have his best statistical season. He did throw for over 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. And that's to his stats. 27 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. In the playoffs, though, I mean, he was flawless. 1,051 passing yards, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. And that 1 interception was in the Super Bowl. And look, I mean, the postseason is really what, led to Mahomes getting this award. Because if you want to talk about, other guys like Christian McCaffrey or Lamar Jackson winning the MVP, you also had Christian McCaffrey, who had a great year, Tyreek Hill as well. There were other guys that maybe could have been chosen, but ultimately, what did Mahomes do when it mattered most? They got to the playoffs, the Chiefs, and they won yet another Super Bowl. The third one in 5 years, which is unbelievable, and they're looking to three-peat. And I talked about them yesterday. And I talked about them a lot, really. I mean, this receiving core is a lot better than what it was last year with the additions that they made. You got Marquise Brown now, Xavier Worthy, who we've talked about. The Chiefs are better equipped on offense than they were last year. And the NFL should be terrified of that because they won the Super Bowl against the Eagles, and that was the first year without Tyreek Hill. And, there were some people that were saying the Chiefs weren't even going to make the playoffs. Well, they did, and they won yet another Super Bowl. Then last year, the offense was worse, and it didn't matter. They won 11 games, and they still made it to the Super Bowl and won it in overtime. And they're looking to get back to how they were, Mahomes' first few years as the full-time starter for the Chiefs. And that's get those explosive plays back in the offense. And they are going to have that when you add a Marquise Brown and now an Xavier Worthy. And, I talked about his 40-yard dash. Yeah, that could be the new Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs. So the NFL should be terrified of that. Now, in terms of, do I think Mahomes deserved to win this award? I think so. Because, again, ultimately, he won the big game. He won the Super Bowl. And it's not like he had, this awful year. But, he didn't have as good of a year as he's had in years past. He won MVP, in 22. And, of course, the first year he was a starter. When he threw 50 touchdowns. They made it to the AFC Championship game and lost to Tom Brady. But, listen, I mean, they played really well in that. He played really well in that game. Well, really well in the second half. Because I think the Chiefs got shut out in the first half in that game. But, yeah, played really well in the second half. Very easily could have won that game. But, you lost to Tom Brady. I don't think there's anything to be, you got to be upset about it. But, it's Tom Brady. So, but, yeah, he's been unbelievable. And, yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson won MVP, and Lamar Jackson had a very good year. And like I said, Christian McCaffrey had a very good year. But, yeah, I think it really, the other thing, too, is it all depends, I think, on how you interpret, these kinds of awards. Because, I mean, for MVP, that was probably the year you give it to someone that isn't a quarterback. But they still gave it to a quarterback. They gave it to Lamar Jackson. So that just goes to show you that it's a QB award. Best NFL player, it's a little different. because it's the SBs. But, yeah, I mean, again, I think it's how you interpret it. I mean, I don't think Patrick Mahomes was the best player last year. But, ultimately, he was the best player in the postseason because, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, wins another Super Bowl MVP, and has now his 3rd Super Bowl, in 6 years. It's unbelievable. So I don't think Patrick Mahomes was not the best NFL player overall last year. But, I mean, ultimately he won the Super Bowl. So, and he is the face of the NFL. That's the other thing too. There are plenty of stars in this league, but ultimately Patrick Mahomes is the face of the NFL. When you think of the NFL right now, you think of Patrick Mahomes. Now, a lot of people are not happy about that. They're sick and tired of seeing Mahomes everywhere. Mahomes is here. Mahomes, you know what? Not even just Mahomes. They're just sick of the Chiefs. And that's, what happened with the Patriots. People were sick of, hearing about Tom Brady and, the Patriots making it to the Super Bowl every year. Not winning it every year, but winning pretty much every other year. But, people do forget that Tom Brady did go 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. People do forget about that. So, yeah, that's really what it is. It's Chiefs fatigue. But you know what? They're not going anywhere. They brought pretty much everybody back. They're even better on offense, like I said. They're not going anywhere. This quarterback's not going anywhere. Travis Kelce's not going anywhere, so you can hear more about Taylor Swift. Actually, there was a funny clip. So George Kittle was on the Rich Eisen show, and Rich Eisen was asking him, have you ever, talked to Travis about getting, Taylor Swift tickets? And he brought up this story about how, I think it was, whose wedding? Was it Christian McCaffrey's wedding? I think it was McCaffrey's wedding. And where they were in Rhode Island. They were near one of Taylor Swift's houses. And, George Kittle, sent Travis Kelce a text and said, hey, can I use the bathroom? And, where does Taylor hide the keys? And Travis is like, I don't know. I mean, you could try to get in, but, security's going to, get you out of there. So I thought that was funny. But, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. But, yeah, it's just people are just tired of hearing about the Chiefs. But here's the thing. Whether it's this show here or, the other football shows that we got, the other sports podcasts that we have on the network, or, the national media thing, you are going to continue to hear about the Chiefs. Because as long as they're relevant, you're always going to hear about the Chiefs. They're not going anywhere. They're just not. So you just got to deal with it. And the other thing, too, is, like I said, you got to appreciate the greatness just a little bit. Because, with the Patriots, you just thought you're never going to see that again. Now, again, the Chiefs have, some ways to go before they get to that point because, the Patriots had 2 separate dynasties. I mean, for all we know, Mahomes could win like 5 straight Super Bowls. I mean, that would just be ridiculous. But, it's just, we're kind of seeing it now with the Chiefs. They are dominating this league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has been in the AFC Championship game every single year that he's been a starter. And, if it wasn't for the Patriots and Tom Brady doing it twice, Mahomes probably has 5 rings. Maybe he, if it wasn't for Joe Burrow and Tom Brady, maybe Mahomes, has won 6 straight Super Bowls. It's just, it's crazy. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens this year. I mean, they're trying to go for it again, and they very well can. There are teams that can definitely knock them off, but we're going to have to see it to believe it. So, but back to this, though. Yeah, did Patrick Mahomes have his best year? No. But I'm fine with him getting the award for best NFL player because ultimately the best player ended up winning the Super Bowl. And that was, that's Patrick Mahomes. Other guys, maybe you look at it, Christian McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson. I know Myles Garrett was also in contention as well because he won Defensive Player of the Year. Although people are upset that TJ Watt didn't win it. But ultimately, Patrick Mahomes gets the award, and listen, I'm fine with it. So let me know what you guys think about that. Does Mahomes deserve this award? And again, the ESPYs are on tonight, so make sure to tune in for it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm gonna have to tape it because I'm going to be out. But I think I'm going to make sure to tape it so I can watch it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. So we're going to go to break. And then when we come back, we'll actually talk about Deshaun Watson. We'll talk about what an NFL scout had to say about Deshaun Watson for his upcoming 2024 campaign. We'll get into that when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, but I wanted to get into what a NFL scout had to say about Deshaun Watson. So let's kind of get into that, what he had to say, and I'll give you my thoughts, because I know I've talked about Deshaun Watson quite a bit on the show. So this is what an NFL scout had to say about Deshaun Watson. He said, when Cleveland acquired Deshaun, he gave promise of superstar production. It hasn't gone well yet, but that success is coming in 2024. He has never been so locked in and motivated. I think this is the season that the Browns feel really good about the King's ransom they traded to get him. That's what the scout said. And this is an article that was on Sports Illustrated. So, some interesting thoughts there. And, yeah, it hasn't been great for Deshaun Watson. Played in 6 games last season. Had a 61.4 completion percentage on his pass attempts. And, 1,115 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Yeah, it hasn't been great. And, you go back to his last season in Houston, 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, which is really good. But I think just the combination of that time off and, everything that happened off the field, that whole situation, which I'm not going to get into, it's just, and combined with injuries, I just feel like, I don't know if we're going to see that Deshaun Watson. But it seems like, but at least from this NFL scout, they feel confident that, and they didn't give the name in the article, so they feel confident that Deshaun Watson can get it done. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the Browns' offensive line, because that was one of the things that was one of the other injuries that the Browns offensive line got ravaged by injuries last year. And at least on Pro Football Focus, and of course when I go to open up the link to the article that I had, they had the Browns offensive line ranked in the top 5. And, and injuries were a problem last year. Not just for the quarterback position, but you also had, running back, and, I believe their top 3 tackles, the Browns, got hurt last year. So I think if you give Deshaun Watson better protection as well, that definitely, will be something that's a positive for them. But I don't know. I just feel like Deshaun Watson, he's been inaccurate and he turns the ball over even before he got hurt. I just feel like, I don't know. I think the peak of Deshaun, I don't think we're going to see that. But, who knows? And, they added Jerry Jeudy to the receiving corps. They gave him I think, what was it, a 3-year extension? So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out. But like I've been saying, I don't think we're going to see peak Deshaun Watson, but I do think that he's going to be good enough where the Browns are going to be a very good team in 2024. I think when you have Nick Chubb coming back, and they're going to try to ease him back into it. You got Jerome Ford. They signed Deontay Foreman, Naeem Hines, who's coming off of his own injury. They got a lot of depth at the running back position where, they could afford to ease Chubb back into it. And Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt last year did a nice job filling in for Chubb when he got hurt. The receiving core, I know we talked about Amari Cooper looking for a new deal, so you're hoping that the Browns can figure it out and get that all situated because he's been solid for them since Dallas traded him to Cleveland. But yeah, you got him. You have Jerry Jeudy now. You got Elijah Moore. You got David Njoku. And if this offensive line is healthy, like I said, the Browns got a solid offense, and then combined with a defense that was top of the league last year. Although they got shredded in the playoff game against the Texans. This is going to be a very good team. But ultimately, I think when it comes to, the Browns and for other teams as well, it's really going to come down to the quarterback play. Because the Browns got Deshaun Watson to take them even further than what Baker Mayfield did, during the COVID season. And so far, they haven't gotten back to the divisional round. 2021, they missed the playoffs. 2022, same thing, missed the playoffs. Last year they made it, despite starting 5 different starting quarterbacks. But, yeah, that game didn't go so well against Houston. But they are looking to, get back, have a healthy season, and Deshaun Watson comes out and, plays really well. And maybe he does. Like I said, I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to be awful. I just don't think we're going to see the Deshaun Watson that we saw in Houston. Because, like I said, I went over, his stats from 2020. I don't think we're going to see that Deshaun Watson. But, if we see a version of that, that's going to make the Browns a very dangerous team. Like I said, you got to limit the turnovers and stay healthy, and be accurate. Because I know there's been times where, Deshaun's throwing the ball in the dirt, and it's just, yeah, he just... But even when he was with Houston, he was throwing the ball in the dirt sometimes. Like, he's not really the best passer. Listen, what made me when he first came into the league, made me really become a fan of Deshaun Watson. Obviously, before everything that happened, off the field. That game against the Seahawks. His rookie season. That was an unbelievable game that he had, and we are so far removed from that. Against the Legion of Boom in Seattle. Now, they might have lost that game, the Texans, but that was the game where I was like, wow, this guy is really good. And then, again, obviously, things kind of changed, and, it's with everything that happened. But we're so far removed from that. And if we get that Deshaun Watson, that was, throwing for a ton of yards against the Legion of Boom in his rookie season. Like I said, the Browns are going to be dangerous. But, I don't think we're going to see that. So, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. This is a big year for him. I think there's a lot of pressure on him because, I don't know what's going to happen after this year if he doesn't play well. Do they move off of him? Right now, kind of made a mistake trading for him. Maybe you should have kept Baker around. Because, at Baker, his final season in Cleveland, he was hurt. He wasn't healthy. So, you give him another chance, maybe he does get you to the playoffs. You got the Buccaneers to the playoffs, right? but I don't know. But when the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, at the time you thought, well, I mean, yeah, they are a better team with Deshaun Watson than Baker Mayfield. But right now, look at the Texans and look at the Buccaneers making the playoffs with Baker Mayfield. The Browns, yeah, they made the playoffs, but, you had Joe Flacco starting. And Joe Flacco, that was a great story. That was one of the best stories of last year, was Joe Flacco coming off of his couch and, playing those final, few games in the regular season and then playing in the postseason game, which, again, didn't go well. But still, give Flacco credit. He came in and he got the Browns to the playoffs, and the Browns fans will always love Joe Flacco, even though he, was the Ravens quarterback for so many years. But which I honestly think they should have kept Flacco, but they have, they got Jameis Winston, they got Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley on the team as well, so they do have depth at the quarterback position. So even if Deshaun Watson gets hurt, I think these guys could step in, and it's not like the Browns, are going to it just would have to be another season like last year, which they're hoping that's not the case. But I think they are equipped for a Deshaun Watson injury. Now, Jameis is going to come in, and what does Jameis do? Jameis throws for a ton of yards, but you know what else Jameis does? He turns the ball over. But, Jameis Winston, he can win you games. Tyler Huntley, he can win you games as well. Started in a playoff game. Almost won it. So the Browns have dealt with it before, but they are hoping that that's not the case. Deshaun Watson comes out, plays really well, and the Browns become a force in the AFC, because if Deshaun Watson is really good, you got to put the Browns up there as one of the elite teams in the AFC. The problem is they play in an elite division, because you got the Steelers, and then, of course, you got the top two teams, in my opinion, the Bengals and the Ravens. So it's going to be interesting. But at least with this NFL scout, they feel very confident that Deshaun Watson's going to go out there and play really well. I know I've done a bunch of topics on, Stefanski commenting on Deshaun, the GM. They feel like this could be the year. So only time will tell. But if it's not the year, if Deshaun Watson goes out there and does not play well, yeah, they got a problem. So, but that's really my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. How do you see Deshaun Watson performing in 2024? Again, it's a big year for him, and we'll see how it goes. But this could be his last shot. If he plays awful, he could be done in Cleveland. But if he kind of has like a middle of the road season, Browns make the playoffs, maybe he does well in the playoffs, that buys him some more time. But we'll see. Does he return to his Pro Bowl self? Anyways, we're going to go to a break. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Raiders. We'll talk about, Devontae Adams, his comments on Antonio Pierce as, he's going to be going into his first full season as the coach of the Raiders. I know we did go over the Raiders schedule yesterday. Really didn't have I didn't have the Raiders finishing with the best record. I think I only had them winning 6 or 7 games around there. But that is what we will discuss when we come back from our final break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Raiders, some comments made by Davante Adams regarding head coach Antonio Pierce as he is getting ready for his first full season as the head coach of the Raiders. But do got some breaking news. All right, so, it's not really like that. I know I talked about when I used that the other day. This, again, gave me an incentive to use it. But the other day it was Josh Allen of the Jaguars changing his name. So a few minutes ago, I saw a post. So Jamal Adams, he will be signing with the Tennessee Titans. The former Jet and former Seahawk, he'll be going to the Titans. So he'll be joining the Titans secondary. Jamal Adams, he's dealt with, injuries. He hasn't been the same player since he left the Jets. But, the Titans are taking a chance on him, add him to the secondary. They've made a lot of moves this offseason. So, we'll see how that pans out. But, so there's some breaking news there. Again, I just wanted to use the it gave me an incentive to use the breaking news feature. So let's talk about Davante Adams, what he had to say about the Raiders. And then actually the other thing I wanted to talk about too is, some things involving Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. So this is what Davante had to say. So he was on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. So you had Adams and Adams. I wouldn't be feeling as good as I do now. This is on Tuesday when asked how he'd feel if the owner Davis didn't give Pierce the full-time job. And he said, that's for sure. He's the type of guy that I really enjoy speaking to, working with, so I basically try to do everything that I could to make it to where the front office didn't have any other choice. Because, you had Davante Adams speaking out, and you had Max Crosby speaking out. Max Crosby, I think, right, both of them would have wanted out of Vegas if they didn't bring him back. So, yeah, he said he talked to Mark Davis. Davante Adams said, we had dinners and sat down, and I expressed to him how much it meant to me and how much it meant to the rest of the team. The other part of it is I really didn't even need to do all that. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't leave any stone unturned. I just wanted to approach it and say, hey, I'm fully stamping this. The proof is in the pudding. You see the difference where we made the change, how these players feel, how hard they played, the results you got on the field. Everything was a million times better, so I was really just trying to put the icing on the cake with the help of some other players. Josh Jacobs, who's no longer there now, he's with the Packers, was vocal about it as well. Obviously, he's no longer with us, but he was the same. Max Crosby, we all kind of took the same approach where we kind of said, look, if he's not going to be here, we're not sure about our future here, just to make sure it was taken seriously, and thank God it worked. And then he also talked about Aaron Rodgers and Josh Jacobs, because Jacobs is trying to get him to come back to Green Bay, and supposedly Rodgers has been in his ear, trying to get him to go to the Jets. He said, it was definitely a joke, but it's one of those jokes where he was serious because he definitely would like that. I told him, go ahead and hold it down. I'm going to hold it down over here. I don't think I'll be coming over there. Never know what's going to happen. If they ship me off, there's not much I can do about it, but I'm a Raider, so nobody has to worry about that. And then the same thing with Rodgers. He's been in my ear. It's not as easy as obviously we can get together and talk about the old times and potential of doing this and that, but like I said, I'm a Raider, and he knows that, maybe in the next lifetime. I would kind of like to see Davante Adams and Rodgers reunite because they really were one of the best combinations in the league. I would argue probably like at least the 2 years that Rodgers won MVP. I mean, they were probably like the best like quarterback wide receiver duo. When Rodgers was winning those back-to-back MVPs. I mean, obviously you could go back and, you could argue some other guys as well, but that's why, like, if they were still playing, I'd still look at Davante Adams as the best receiver in the league because I still think he's that dude. It's just, right now you got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell throwing you the football. Last year you had Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brian Hoyer throwing you the football. So, I think if Davante Adams was still with Rodgers, he'd still be. I mean, he's still putting up numbers. It's just, I think with Rodgers, he'd still be. He'd be doing even better. Well, And then he had Derek Carr that first year in Vegas too, and that was the whole reason why he went to Vegas. But then they shipped out Derek Carr. They probably should have kept him, but it is what it is. Well, maybe he goes back. Maybe he goes back now with Antonio Pierce there. I mean, Josh McDaniels didn't want him. Maybe the Saints say, you know what, it's not working out with Derek. We're gonna, go in a different direction. Because I think there's, some rumors about that maybe, this could be Derek Carr's last year with the Saints. Who knows? But, Davante Adams really, went out of his way to make sure that Antonio Pierce was going to be the guy. And when you have him, when you have Max Crosby, these are the two best guys. Max Crosby's the best, defensive player on the team. Davante Adams probably the best offensive player on the team. With Josh Jacobs, maybe there was a little debate, but yeah, it's Davante Adams. You want to make sure your stars are happy. And the Raiders, they have tried to make these splash hires, in recent years. Josh McDaniels recently, and then, of course, you had, John Gruden. And it looked like it was going to work out with Gruden because they got off to that good start in 2021. They still made the playoffs. But, then all the stuff with the emails came out on Gruden, and, they got rid of him, and Rick Bisaccia took over. So, it didn't work out well with Gruden. But, with Antonio Pierce, you saw there was a shift. And the Raiders, they started playing as a team. They started playing better. And, they made the switch at quarterback. They put Aiden O'Connell in. They benched Garoppolo. And, they finished with a respectable record of 8-9, if you even want to call it that. But, compared to where they were at the beginning of the season to where they ended up, you got to give Antonio Pierce a lot of credit. And, we'll see how they are this year. Again, I penciled them in at, around 6-7 wins. I don't think, they're one of these elite teams. The defense, I think, could be even better because, they also added Christian Wilkins to help out Max Crosby when it comes to, getting after the quarterback. So, the Raiders, they could be a decent team. But, they play in the same division as the Chiefs. And, right now it's between them and the Chargers for, second and third place. And then the Broncos are the last place team, which we talked about earlier in the show. But, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Raiders. I like their playmakers on offense. We'll see how the backfield is because, there is no more Josh Jacobs. It's Zamir White and Alexander Mattison. And, we'll see who ends up being the starter, whether it's Aiden O'Connell or if it's Gardner Minshew, which I think it probably would be Minshew, but that's just me. But you know what? I was very happy that Antonio Pierce got the full-time job. I think he definitely deserved it. And, the players, they respond to him. And you know what? As a player, he knows what it takes to win. When he was with the Giants and they won that Super Bowl way back when, that also has to factor into your experience. You know what a winning culture is. And also, he's got some advice from Tom Coughlin as well. Because I remember, I think I did a segment on Antonio Pierce, and I think that was something that I brought up. And you know what? They could give the Chiefs some problems. They did last year, so we'll see what happens. I think they need, the quarterback, I think, is something that they're going to have to address at some point because you got all these weapons, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Tucker. You brought in Michael Gallup, and you got two tight ends now, Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. So you got a lot of pass catchers, So it's just, I feel like if you can get the right quarterback in there, the Raiders could be a team that could be a problem. So, they're heading in the right direction, but, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think though about what Davante Adams had to say. Also, I guess the other thing too is, I guess I'll touch upon this quickly. Is just now Aaron Rodgers is trying to recruit Davante Adams. I know, like I said, I kind of do wish that they would reunite, but just imagine him on the Jets with, then you got Garrett Wilson kind of slides in as your number 2, and that would be huge if the Jets were able to get Davante Adams. And the Jets were trying to get Davante Adams. It's just not happening. But, Josh Jacobs trying to recruit him. Rodgers trying to recruit him. He's going to stay as a Raider. Now, if he went to Green Bay, if he went to the Jets, I mean, that would be awesome. But right now he's a Raider. And, they are, I don't think they're a bad team, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's, maybe they get in as a wild card, but I don't see that. I look at some other teams that have a better chance of doing that. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe Antonio Pierce proves us wrong. Maybe Gardner Minshew, gets the team to 9-8. They make the playoffs. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it though. Let me know what you guys think about what Davante Adams had to say. How do you see the Raiders doing in 2024? It'll be interesting. But, I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well throughout the day. And before you know it, I'm going to keep saying it, we are going to get to the point where games will be played, and we won't have to keep, repeating ourselves constantly. Maybe we get, news on Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, guys still looking for new deals. So, thankfully we got some stuff to talk about with the Hard Knocks, and, like I said, I'll probably, touch upon the receiver series on Netflix at some point. But, tomorrow is Friday, so make sure to tune into the show. And that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.